being in their favor. They're not special. They're just meat bags like the rest of us. Okay, that is a description of terrorism. I don't know why you would expect violent criminals to behave rationally, like they have any respect for whatever rules they don't feel beholden from. It says they're acting rationally in their perspective. This response by whoever is now in control of the organization is calculated to establish a high cost for something like this happening in the future in order to reduce the likelihood of it happening to them, as well as demonstrating strength to solidify their new position of power. Well, that's a good approach if Donald Trump wasn't down to slap back. And so if things don't get under control, I think Trump could be actually sending troops in. I think whoever's in charge might be thinking maybe that wasn't the right move. People saying, guys, this is huge. He was the head of the biggest cartel, and they not only got him, they caught some of his biggest people in that cartel. The cartels will retaliate big time. There are a lot of reports and rumors they're going to start killing civilians at 1 p.m. We're all afraid in Jalisco. Update. Writing this as of 3 p.m. and it seems like it's all cooling out. There's still some chaos, but it hasn't escalated, and it seems those threats to civilians being killed was just to create panic. People saying, I heard 2 p.m., not joking. I have family in Guadalajara. They've been given a 2 p.m. curfew. Anyone caught outside after 2 p.m. are under the threat of death. Everything is shut down here. I can't order food or Uber rides. Never seen anything like it. Streets are mostly empty. I don't even want to peek outside. It says the Mexican people deserve so much better than to be under the thumb of these fucks. Hopefully a lot of the Jalisco cartel end up dead or in jail as they try carrying out their revenge attacks. Okay, people say I don't know specifics here, but there's usually a power vacuum and the existing members of a cartel fight and kill each other to take control. Unfortunately, there are always countless civilians caught in the crossfire of such battles. And basically, there's a lot of reports of people saying my cousin's been missing for 5 years because of this piece of shit. Rest in piss fucker. That's what they're saying. Really, really sad. Okay, that can't be right. The good, this guy truly did not deserve to roam free. The bad, there's probably another guy taking his place as we speak. The ugly, the armed unrest in Jalisco and others due to this. So there's a lot of different threads on Reddit about this that are quite interesting. And I'll tell you about some of those throughout this video. We already looked at this one. But I'll tell you what's interesting, okay? I'll tell you what's interesting. Let's take a little look at his Wikipedia page and we can just glean a little bit of backstory about how he actually got to this point now. Obviously, as you can see, this is a rapidly updating situation, all right? But basically, this is El Mencho, right? He was a really serious big deal running the CJNG, Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG. This was a serious crime syndicate, okay? Well, it is a serious crime syndicate. I don't want to say anything bad about them. That would be bad. But obviously, he was basically wanted. He'd come up in a very interesting way. He was born into poverty in the state of Michoacan. El Mencho grew avocados and dropped out of primary school before emigrating illegally to the U.S. in the 1980s. So he was over in the US making links in the 80s. After being arrested several times, he was deported back to Mexico in the early 90s, and he worked for the Milenio cartel. He eventually climbed to the top of the criminal organization and then founded CJNG after several of his bosses were arrested or killed. So it's highly likely that, some young upstart is going through the same thing and is about to establish or take the reins of these violent groups. His notoriety was a result of his aggressive leadership and sensationalist acts of violence against both rival criminal groups and Mexican security forces alike. This brought him the increased government attention and extensive manhunt. Security forces were trying to work out where he was hiding in the rural terrains of Jalisco. He was hiding out, was guarded by mercenaries with military training, but he unfortunately was killed during this military operation. Well, it depends how you look at it. But essentially...
So even if he didn't have a violent history, he still would have been a target merely because of the fact that he was generating so much cash.
Okay, he kind of grew up in a poor family, spent time in the US, crossed the border. Even the DEA believes that during this time, that's when he became involved in meth production and trade in Redwood City, which is on the San Francisco Peninsula there. He was arrested in San Fran for selling narcotics, deported to Mexico several months later, but he even re-entered the US and resettled in San Francisco. So he had them California links, man. I definitely don't want to say nothing too bad. He got arrested for federal drug charges in Sacramento, California. Oh no, I know a few people over there. According to court records, him and his brother Abraham were at a San Francisco bar known as Imperial to carry out a H deal, 5 ounces for $9,500. El Mencho actually acted as a lookout. I'm going to mute my phone because I don't want the cartel to be messaging me right now. So the transaction was set up by the police They handed over perfectly stacked dollar bills instead of loose ones through a wiretap conversation. El Mencho warned his brother to never do business with them again since they were undercover cops. So he rose to become the leader. And what's really interesting, it says El Mencho started as a member of the assassin squad that protected the drug lord Armando Valencia Cornelio, alias El Maradona. His boss was arrested by the Mexican authorities, and at the same time, a rival criminal group known as Los Zetas, with the backing of the Gulf Cartel, carry out an armed offensive against the Milenio cartel in Michoacan. The attack forced the Valencia family in exile to Jalisco. He relocated in the state capital, Guadalajara, with his father-in-law, and basically they created an alliance between the Milenio cartel and the Sinaloa cartel, headed by Ignacio Nacho Coronel, a high-ranking drug lord and ally of El Chapo. So under Coronel, El Mencho and his group managed the Sinaloa's cartel drug operations, finances, and murder activities in the states of Colima and Jalisco. So basically, all of these little moves that he made basically ended up putting him to the very top of his own cartel. When the Milenio top leader, El Lobo, was arrested, his brother Juan Carlos was also arrested, and then 2 months later, Corona was killed in a shootout with the Mexican army. Following their downfalls, the Milenio cartel began to rupture, and El Mencho tried to take over the leadership structure. And then basically there was a little bit of back and forth. Okay, one sect within the cartel wanted to appoint as the leader somebody else, El Pilo, who worked closely with a couple of guys before their arrests. And basically one of the clan members wanted El Mencho to take control. El Mencho then asked the other Milenio bloc to hand over Gerardo Menzola, aka Tecato or Cochi, for killing a group of men that reported to him. The other division refused the request, and that prompted an internal war. So the Milenio cartel split into two. One side known as the Resistance, the other was Los Mata Zetas, or the Zeta Killers, headed by El Mencho, and they basically went to war over the turf, and El Mencho's group launched a propaganda campaign against its enemies. They denounced extortions done by rival gangs against civilians, businessmen, and government authorities, and the Los Mata Zetas eventually won their war. They consolidated their power in western Mexico, and that's when they changed the name to the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG. Okay, and as leader, he basically expanded. He corrupted government officials. It went from a small offshoot criminal gang to one of the leading groups in Mexico. He took that set to the very top. He established himself as one of Mexico's most wanted criminals, and his fame is due to a number of factors, including aggressive and sensationalist displays of public violence by the CJNG. These guys were brutal. They are brutal. Okay. Direct attacks against Mexico's security forces earned El Mencho a nickname and a reputation as the principal enemy of the state and a dangerous criminal. Okay, and the fall of other Mexico's top crime bosses would basically clear the way for El Mencho to become the top dog over there. He consolidated his operations by fighting off incursions from other groups like the Los Zetas and the Knights Templar cartel, and basically he was responsible, according to the government, for overseeing the CJNG's entire operation, the whole thing. All right, he created a bastion for methamphetamine trade. They were absolutely booming over there. Okay, they basically concentrated in 8 states. They had a firm grip of the drug trafficking operation, and the only place where they'd actually were losing presence was in Mexico City. They've got ties with criminal groups in the US, Latin America, Europe, Asia, Africa. They're plugged in all over the world, and they're mainly focused on cocaine and methamphetamine sales. Okay, he made the gang one of Mexico's most profitable gangs, and it was estimated El Mencho's group had $50 billion in total assets. They really are like Walmart. Okay, I was saying Walmart should be able to sell drugs. These guys had it sewn up. They had Walmart money. Okay, it is absolutely insane. He would share his success with his brother-in-law, who had his own drug trafficking group that was allied with them. He actually ended up getting arrested by the Mexican Navy, but basically he was able to strategize market and consumer changes. They started in meth, and they moved to heroin when the consumer demand changed, and obviously Donald Trump's very upset about the new invention of fent, and they were hunting him for years. Okay, there's been various task forces looking for him for years. He's been shooting it out with the cops. 6 of his gunmen were killed in a firefight when the authorities tried to come and get him, and they basically just tried absolutely everything that they could to avoid capture. They said a series of highly coordinated attacks to present his arrest. They would block highways and roads, setting vehicles on fire. So what they're doing now is nothing new, right? They would burn vehicles and create blockades to impede security forces from traveling across Jalisco's capital and giving El Mencho time to escape. So he basically was able to get away. There was always gunfights. Gunmen ambushed the CJNG gunman would ambush a federal police convoy and kill 11 people, 5 police officers, 3 civilians, and 3 of the cartel gunmen. This was a response basically to protect El Mencho, who was in the area for a meeting. So he's coming to town for meetings, and cops are getting killed even trying to get close to him. All right, it is actually crazy. And he was putting out attacks against the Mexican federal.
So that's another mistake that the Mencho was making. Why is he physically coming into whatever town just to hold a meeting? You can have a representative in place of him go to attend that meeting, or even have a video call, a pre-video call, discussing whatever needs to be discussed. He doesn't need to be physically there.
Police, they were blocking roads, years in, years out. They would even shoot down him. El Mencho's men shot down a Mexican army helicopter with an RPG, killing 9 soldiers. This guy is, it's not even, I was going to say, he's living GTA. This is beyond GTA. This has never been seen before. Okay, he's going on true battles, they're blowing up army helicopters with RPGs. Right? They were setting 39 buses, 11 banks, and 16 gas stations on fire. This is insanity, okay? So they were trying to find him. There were criminal charges levied against him from the DEA, right? There were a lot of problems. They were desperately trying to get him. He was designated a kingpin. They sanctioned him under the Foreign Narcotics Kingpin Designation Act. This ain't no RICO. This is when the RICO ain't working. They got the Kingpin Act, okay? It is crazy. Now, apparently there was infighting amongst his cartel. People were getting killed, and there were family battles. I'm going to not talk about his family because I'm scared. He apparently did actually have some health concerns. Some people said he might have suffered from kidney disease. He built his own hospital to treat it. All right, it's insane. But obviously now, as we can hear, he is no longer with us, unfortunately. And the city is in turmoil. So I'm going to show you some clips from Reddit of basically that's just the city burning. Same as in Mexico after the hit. I mean, it is really bad. People are running for their lives at the airport. I'm hearing reports that they're shooting up the airport, setting cars on fire. That ain't nothing new. They know how to do that. That's how they roll. So people are literally hiding in fear. Michael Bublé advertisement on the bus on fire. Not a good look. Not a good look, right? It's crazy. So people are saying this is just the start. It's going to get effing crazy down there. Stay safe, all of my Mexican homies. Power vacuums are never peaceful. The next few months are going to be a bloodbath. Saying it looks bad, but this is heading in the right direction. The only way Mexico can thrive is if they cut the cartels down. But people are saying, unfortunately, 3-letter agencies from Mexico's neighbor to the north wouldn't like that outcome. I've personally worked for CVS, I can confirm. And they said, let CVS sell cocaine and meth. That will solve all of the problems, please. Says, I've been watching CNN all morning, not even a mention of this. US news outlets are worthless. Right? Live news channel from Mexico reporting on it. El Mencho is the one that ordered to kill that influencer guy. Oh, wow. Hang on. Okay, so this is why I won't be saying anything bad about El Mencho. It says, these are the influencers who mocked El Mencho and ended up dead. El Pirata de Culiacian. I need to work on my Spanish. That's crazy. That's crazy. So you can't make fun of this guy or you will be smoked. Okay? Basically, the death of this influencer... the death of El Mencho revived memory of public figures who crossed the line with organized crime and lost their lives. That's crazy. Viral fame and death for mocking El Mencho. He said, El Mencho can suck my D. He was only 17 years old. He said, El Mencho can suck my F. He posted on social media. He was murdered on December the 18th, 2017, inside of a bar in Jalisco. He was shot 15 times for the attack, and it was attributed to hitmen linked with the CJNG. No formal charges were filed, but the message in the digital world was powerful. I'm going to say El Mencho was a great guy. The case of Valeria Marquez, she was murdered in her beauty salon in Zapopan. The young woman was live streaming on TikTok when an armed man entered. Wow, the incident was surrounded by rumors about alleged romantic ties to Ricardo Ruiz Velasco. LRR, head of the elite group in the CJNG. It is quite sad, okay? Another case, Jackie Ramirez, a former participant on Acapulco Shore. Her name came to light after she was linked to Fernando Gonzalez Nunez, alias La Flaca, an alleged CJNG operative who was killed in an armed attack at a bar. Yeah, let's not make fun of this guy. I think this guy is a great guy. Rest in peace, man. So, yeah, you got to be careful. Okay? I too hate context and love random cuts, all right? People saying, what happened? We know what happened, all right? We know what happened. Real question, what stops Mexico from taking the El Salvador approach and arresting anyone, low level included, suspected of being a cartel member and sorting it out later? The cartels are too strong. They will cook you and they will smoke you. Okay, so this is going all over the place. We're seeing DJ Academics is posting pictures of burnt out planes. Cartel forces literally burned down a plane in Mexico. This is a joke. People saying this is how people expected Lil Durk to slide for Von. Oh my god, the internet is just crazy. All right, so all of this news that's been getting announced on r/Narcos. If you don't know r/Narcos, all right, this is mainly discussing the Netflix original series Narcos, but also it actually appears that people are using this to discuss real life Narcos, and you got to be careful. People saying new season about to drop. Okay, I can't believe it. After all of these years, I would love to know how they pinpointed his location and what is now going to happen to the CJNG. It says it's because there's been a huge increase in intelligence assets from the US in the region. Remember season 1 when Murphy talked, said, and they know who you're fucking, as it panned over to a bunch of accountant-looking guys in a plane? Those IRL were US Army ISA Signet officers who specialize in tracing people based on signals in the 21st century. That tech has evolved now, and they can trace cell phone signals. The US trained the Ukrainians how to do the same thing and provided the tech. Russian generals would make a cell phone call and get blown the fuck up because some analyst in the office picked it up and passed it to the Ukrainian Air Force. If you read specifics on the raid, US Special Ops were embedded with Mexican Special Ops, meaning odds are the same Signet technology and skills Ukrainians used to assassinate Russian generals is now being applied to narcos. Then there's modern satellite technology to consider. They can pick up anything these days. The age of stealth and concealment is over. You breathe and you're effing dead. You're saying it might be the end of the drug lord era of narcos in Mexico. The new generation of narcos doesn't have the same mythical aura and power and invincibility. It's hard to imagine there will be a next El Chapo or El Mencho. Mexican narcos might be reduced to what they've become in Colombia, from legendary figures like Escobar to just common thugs. Okay, some people think that this is actually the end of the cartels as we know it. Now, I'm going to take you to a random subreddit. Okay, I'm a fan of Destiny, a controversial streamer Destiny, but he is got a very active and kind of hilarious community on Reddit, and people are reacting there. They say El Mencho is dead. This is huge for Mexico. We could see extreme violence that hasn't been seen since the 2000 narco wars. All right, so oh no, Mexico is going to have some serious retaliation from all this. Praying for all the DGG Mexican homies, man. Saying he's the leader of CJNG. No, wow, extreme violence. All right, extreme violence. They're saying the CJNG has made a vague ultimatum that at 5 p.m. Mexico time they will start targeting hotels and people's homes. His sons have been captured, so they probably want them released. Things have started popping off. Cars on fire. Okay, people saying that the news has just caught them by storm. They can't believe what they're seeing over in the Narcos subreddit. People are in shock that this has happened, right? I'm not going to read that one. It says, so you don't know the significance. Explain how big he is compared to El Chapo. It says, I might dare even bigger than El Chapo, only he was way more low-key than El Chapo. He had become some sort of myth to a degree. His death due to an illness was rumored for years now. He was the head of CJNG, which is the biggest cartel right now. Bigger, he was on his own. Chapo had Mayo, Amado had Azul. Mencho was not on his own. He had laws. He had his in-laws in the Los Cunis. Also, Mencho used to technically work for the Sinaloa Hotel through Nacho Coronel before CJNG was a thing. So a lot of people have been putting that up for debate. Who was more powerful, El Mencho or El Chapo? All right, people are saying, was he more powerful than El Chapo? They're saying Chapo was more famous because he liked attention, but Mencho was definitely more powerful. People say, not true, not even close. Mencho worked for Chapo, and even with Sinaloa leaderless, his territory on a map is nothing. He had no border plazas. Sinaloa was 100 times more powerful than Jalisco. People saying CJNG is more powerful, bro. We all know that they got more manpower and a shitload of money. El Mencho never worked under El Chapo, and people are arguing. They're saying, yes, he absolutely did. He was the head of Chapo's Mata Zetas hit squad. They had 0 border plazas, and they absolutely did not have more money than Sinaloa. Sinaloa created the first total vertical integration of the cocaine trade. They control the Colombian processing and manufacturing. They control the trade routes, and they control the border plazas. Then on top of it, they control wholesale sales in most of the US and retail sales in most cities with strong Mexican demographics. He owned the president of Mexico for the small cost of $100 million. Your feelings are not facts. Sinaloa is and has been for 3 decades the largest, most powerful criminal organization in criminal history. They aren't one gang, they're a coalition of smaller gangs, but they control all the border plazas. There was a recent split in Tijuana from Sinaloa, giving Mencho his first real border access into California. And too bad it didn't mean a thing now that he's passed. FYI, the only thing that matters to a cartel in Mexico is access to America at those border plazas, without which you have nothing. You pay tax to use your enemy's border plazas and not a small one. Jalisco was just a short-lived, aggressive competitor. Once they started attacking military helicopters, U.S. citizens, and threatening U.S. federal agents in Washington, there was only one response from Uncle Sam: F around and find out. Sam, a disproportionate amount of CJNG blood spilled and a dead leader leader. Below is a map of the absolute height of CJNG's reach that will now never get close to Sinaloa. Should we have a look? They did have a decent... they had a pretty decent amount of territory, if you ask me. They're in the red. They had a big amount of territory. That looks like a border crossing there. A little tip there with some territory. The Sinaloa cartel got big chunks, and they seem to control all the borders, so I understand why that would give them an undue amount of power. But Jalisco definitely got a lot of red on the board. Los Zetas have a decent amount of territory in the south, but I can see why the people would respect the Sinaloa as far as them controlling the borders. The Juarez cartel got a little section of the borders there, but this is crazy. Okay, so look, no disrespect to any of the cartels. You know, hey, a very, very crazy situation. I hope no civilians get hurt from this point on, okay? That's very scary. But I would say, you know, I've always said it before, I don't think there's anybody more powerful than the Americans, whether it's the American military, American politics, you know, just American land and resources in general. America is not to be played with. They have won the geography Olympics, the geography lottery. They got the best land, the best people, the best resources, the best weapons, the best minds, and the whole country is armed to the teeth. So you can't really fuck with America. Can't really play with America. But, okay, people like to try. Very crazy situation, okay. I will be keeping track of this situation as it develops. I will let you guys know if I hear anything else. If you're interested in this story, let me know. I'll keep covering these topics.
So just before Traplaw finishes off his report, for anyone that looks up to people like El Mencho, El Chopo, etc., just know that his ending will most likely be your ending. You'll either go to prison, you'll go to jail, you'll die. Only bad things and negative things will happen to you. Yes, you will gain cash, you'll gain notoriety, you'll gain assets, you'll gain physical items, but just know that your life will permanently be at risk. The people around you will always be at risk. Your family, your friends, your children, anyone that gets close to you, they will always be a target with you. You'll always be a target. They'll always be a target. So in the end, no matter how much money you make from this type of business, it's not worth it because, as I said, you'll either die or go to prison. So as much as you can, try avoid this type of life. Try avoid these type of people. Try to keep as legitimate as possible. Your life is worth more than any amount of cash.
I'm about to do a David topic and I'm about to do an Epstein topic, and then I'll wrap it up for the day. But thank you for watching the content that I did yesterday.